Planet tanks are one of the best things that you could own. Like, they're so gorgeous. I just can't even explain how amazing they are. So right now I have 11 Planet tanks, and I have 19 tanks total. And I'm not gonna be showing them to you. I'm just gonna be explaining how to do it. So right here on my desk, I just have 2 different Planet tanks. They're both 10 gallons. So I'm going to explain how to do lighting, how to do the carbon dioxide, the substrate, and everything you need to know. So there's 3 really important things when you're planning a tank. You need to think about CO2, you need to think about substrate, and then you need to think about the lighting. In reality, you really just need 2 of those 3 things. So you could have a rich substrate and good lights, rich substrate and carbon dioxide and lighting, or a combination. And it's even better if you have all 3, but you're not really going to be able to grow much plants at least unless you have like 2 of those things. Sorry that I'm messing up my words a little bit. So in this tank I have Java Fern and Amazon swords, I think. I'm not really good at like IDing the different kinds of swords, so I don't know what kind of sword it is. And so there's a lot of plants like Java Fern and Anubis that you shouldn't really put them into the gravels. Here we have Java Fern, and right now it's in the gravel just so that the roots can take root into the gravel. And then I'm going to be uncovering the gravel, and I'm going to be exposing the rhizome, or whatever it's called. Because you don't want that buried, because you'll basically like kill your plant if it's under gravel the whole time. Oh, same thing with the Anubis. That's where you should like tie it to a rock or something. So I'm probably going to rescape these tanks pretty soon, but for now they are what they are because I'm also getting an order of plants. But let me just get to the video. So first we're going to talk about substrate because it's the first thing you really put into your tank. There's a lot of different options out there in terms of Planet tank substrate, but I'm actually not going to recommend any of them. I don't really have experience with any of them. The small experience I have not really noticed any difference whatsoever between growing them in a Planet tank substrate versus gravel. If there was a difference, it would be very, very small. It's basically just a bunch of like chemicals mixed together, thrown into a bag, and you rinse out your bag, hopefully, so it doesn't get all cloudy. And while you do that, you basically just threw out everything that you had paid for, so I don't really see a point in them. I choose dirt for my Planet tanks because it's really cheap, easy. You just get the organic potting soil, put it at the bottom of your tank, cover it with a cap of sand, even Planet tank substrate, gravel. I like this small like pea gravel or whatever, pea pebbles. So that's really all you need for it. The dirt is very rich in nutrients. It's basically kind of, it gives a lot of like the plants like similar, like it grows them like the kind of like the same way that CO2 would. And like I was saying, if you have really good substrate such as dirt in addition to a really strong light, you're not really going to need that CO2. On this tank, I recently just got CO2 yesterday on both of these tanks actually. So we'll see how that takes care of the plants. I'll do an update video in like a few months from now or weeks too. I can just do a lot of videos. I'm hopefully going to be doing a lot more videos. And so if you choose to do a Planet tank substrate, there's like Fluorite, Fluval, EcoComplete, a whole list out there. Like I said, I don't really recommend them, but I have heard good things. So now we're going to be talking about CO2. So CO2 is carbon dioxide, and hopefully you learned in science class that plants need CO2 to grow. So there's a little bit of CO2 in the water, but not as much as the plants would prefer. So you should give them some sort of CO2. It's not necessary if you're growing like the lower tech plants, but for the higher tech things like, what's it called? Dwarf hairgrass, baby tears, etc., etc., you definitely want to be using some CO2. And that can come in the form of do-it-yourself CO2 or pressurized CO2, but either way you need to be using CO2. The stuff like Flourish XL or planted tank CO2 or CO2 booster, those are not the same as CO2. And if you're researching plants and you read that something needs CO2, the Flourish is not going to cut it. That's a fertilizer. There's like Flourish, just normal Flourish, Flourish iron, stuff like that. And so do-it-yourself is really easy to make. And you kind of just make a new batch of it every week. You just need like some sugar, some baking yeast, some like, I don't know, it's either called baking powder or baking soda. Very easy to make. And you could run a small tank with that if you're doing something like a 55 gallon, 75 gallon, anything really above 20, I would recommend going with a pressurized CO2. They're pretty expensive and complicated to learn, but well worth it. Now in terms of lighting, there's a bunch of different options of lights out there. If you're going like something like Water, Wisteria, Java Fern, Anubis, you're not going to be needing to invest in those multi-$100 lights. Something as simple as like a desk lamp, like this, can grow those kind of plants. I know in the past, and on currently some of my tanks, I have reptile like lights, like not reptile lights, like the reptile fixture with the lights inside of them, just like household lights. They grow certain plants very well. Obviously wouldn't be able to grow something like baby tears, but for the low light plants it works great. My favorite option is LED lights. They last a long time, they're pretty affordable, and they have like different options. Like this is an LED light. It can go off, it can go on, and at nighttime it has this beautiful blue glow. So if you're going to be using LED lights to grow high light plants, then you're going to need to invest in a full spectrum light. This includes red lights, blue lights, green lights, and white lights. If I took the camera off the tripod, which I will do, if you look on the shimmer of the water, you could see there's the full spectrum there. A lot of times when you buy a light, it will only come with white lights, or white and blue. Those are good for growing, like I said, the low light things, similar to if you were using just like a low light fluorescent tube or a household light. It's not going to be growing the more advanced things. I have no experience growing, what's it called, Amazon swords under those kind of lights, but for the most part, most of the plants in this tank and in this tank should be able to grow under that kind of condition. But right now I have highlights on this planted tank because I hope to increase the growth of my Amazon swords, or whatever kind of swords they are. I think I might have like a red flame or something like that too. And I'm going to be getting some more highlight plants for this tank as well. So, what else do I want to talk about? I forgot. Okay, I just remembered. So then there's also the fluorescent lights. So there's like the T8s and the T5. I have no experience with T5 lights, so I don't want to talk about them because I might steer you wrong. If you're using fluorescent lights, you need to have at least 65,000 K. Really, with any light, you need at least 65,000 K. That's the color temperature. And above, no, it's not 65,000, 6,500, I'm sorry, 6,500 Kelvin. Because under that, plants are simply not going to grow. You can get this kind of fixture at Home Depot, online, really anywhere. If you're going to be going with fluorescent, I recommend a double fixture. Grows plants a lot better. Like with this kind of LED, there's several rows of LEDs. With a fluorescent, you might want several rows. I don't really think that it's a good idea to get a tiny little clip over a tank. Instead, get a long light that will go over the whole tank. A lot of talking. I've recorded this video like 5 times already, kept on messing up. So now we're going to talk about fertilizers. So there's a bunch of different kind of fertilizers. A lot of dirts already have organic fertilizers, so you don't really need any substrate fertilizers. But if you're not going to be using dirt, if you're just going to be using like a plant substrate or even gravel or sand, because...
Did you get the videos back?
Yes, I am making a video.
No, did you get the videos back?
No, every other video was not recovered. Actually, I recovered a few videos, but it was such low quality because it was like a spliced version. Alright, well my brother is just coming in here. So, Lars, can you please leave because I'm talking about fertilizers. Hey, don't mess with my... Lars! I really apologize for that. Alright, so there's different kinds of fertilizers like root tabs and stuff like that that you would insert into the substrate. I have used them in the past, but I haven't documented any change or anything. I have used a lot of different kind of fertilizers, and honestly, I don't really notice a difference between using fertilizers and not. Fertilizers I'm talking about are like the Flourish series, Excel, Iron, just normal Flourish. I don't really notice a difference. I've also used like plant CO2 boosters, and I don't notice a difference. I think they're a waste of time and money, and I prefer not to add things to the tank. Right here, I have one of the Flourish things. I found it in my room. I don't want to focus right now. And I also found the Excel and the Flourish thing. I might do a test, like put it on one tank and not the other and see what difference it makes, because I don't want to just start pouring the chemicals in there and be like, yep, it works, because unless you really have like set variables that don't change, you're not really going to know, because both tanks have the same lighting. They have similar substrate, not the same. This one has more dirt than this one. This one doesn't just have this one gravel, because I didn't have enough gravel, so I had to like mix it with some ugly gravel, which I'm probably going to regret in the future. But this one is just this prettier gravel. I would need like the same amount of everything, honestly, so that I would be able to know if there's any like changed things, like the same size plants to begin with, the same in carbon dioxide. And that's a very difficult thing to control, so oh well. What else did I have to talk about? That's basically it. If it's your first time getting a planted tank, I would probably suggest getting like a few clumps or bunches of bunch plants, fast growing ones, because it depends. Like, I am not the kind of person who likes those planted aquascapes. I like tanks that are wild and crazy and overgrown. I don't like trimming my plants, and I will not trim my plants. So, I mean, eventually I'm gonna have to start trimming my plants, because I have a lot of tanks and I kind of want plants in all of them. So I'm gonna have to do cuttings so that I could spread the plants out among the tanks. But then eventually I'm not gonna do cuttings, because I love it for it to be overgrown and come out of the tank. Like, my swords in here come out of the tank. Like, those are not swords, by the way, in the hair. I'm going off the tripod for this. Like, my swords are out of the water. My betas are growing. I mean, doing, what's it called? These are all betas, by the way, because I love beta fish. There is Bastille. There's like a oily film in the water, because it's not the world's best filter. But as you could see, underneath the sword, he is doing a bubble nest. And I bought this sword green at the store, and these new leaves that are coming in are turning red, which is really nice, because this is not an Amazon sword. I forget what it's called. And under these really nice lights, it's able to grow. But yeah, see, they're turning red and stuff. And also be careful when setting up your first planted tank, because plants like this are not fully aquatic, and they will probably eventually rot. I'm not sure why this plant has not rotted. It's been in this tank for several years. This tank has only been planted for 4 days, believe it or not, both of them, or 4 or 5 days, but I've had a lot of growth already. So I'm going to be able to bring you some better videos about planted tanks once I have more planted tanks myself. So thanks for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe. Feel free to request any other videos. Bye.